I always like the term moderator rather than facilitator because it sounds like Jerry Springer in a fight to break out. So I was like, yeah, moderator, not facilitator. That's awesome. I do want to start with a little bit of a disclaimer. We're going to talk about our students today, but I also don't want to give you the impression that we are trying to make this like singular student that is representative of our entire population. Our students are individuals, they have individual needs. And the fortunate thing about EKU is a lot of students pick EKU because it's small enough to get the services, but big enough to have the resources. And it is small enough that we can treat students like individuals. So as we talk about some kind of broad ideas and things today, we are very mindful of the fact that there's not a single brushstroke that captures what our students are experiencing. And so I'm going to start by asking the panelists to introduce themselves. And here's what I need. I need you as your name, your title. And because I know all of you work with a whole variety of student populations, rather than try to capture the populations you work with, could you tell us a little bit about the population that you represented while you were in college? Because I think that's kind of a nifty approach. And I'm going to start to my left.
Hello, everybody. I'm Star Wenzel. Who does not want to hear me talk about essential skills?
Never.
I am here in a completely different capacity right now. So I'm putting back on my first year courses hat. Like I mentioned the other day, I'm the director for first year courses. I came to EKU 25 years ago this summer as a freshman and just never left. So I have 3 degrees from here, but I'm from Eastern Kentucky, as far east as you can go. And I would have identified as a first generation and low income student. I think that's the reason I'm so passionate about working with first year students and first year courses, is because I really struggled whenever I came to college. There were some folks that came with me from my high school, but EKU, even though it has the name Eastern Kentucky University, it is still very different from back home. I will share one thing I shared in a different training yesterday is whenever I came, everybody made fun of my accent. Everybody. I'm at Eastern Kentucky University and everybody made fun of my accent because so many students are from Northern Kentucky or from Louisville and from various places. And I had to repeat the word coal truck. I think I even had to spell it a couple of times. All of my I's are long, like white and light, and they still are. But it really was interesting. And I met with a student even this past spring that said, I had a harder time transitioning into EKU than I have of other places that I've visited, but I finally have made a friend group where the first thing out of their mouth isn't something about my accent. And that's at EKU. So whenever she said that to me, I was like, man, I felt the same way 25 years ago. And it just really, really resonated with me. So.
Hello, everybody. First of all, welcome to EKU. This is my 22nd year here, and I've had several jobs in my life, and this is one of the best ever. So this is a great place to be. They are great. You're going to work with great folks, hopefully in your respective departments. I'm going to tell you that Dr. Laura Vance is amazing as our Dean of Students. I was in charge of a program on campus. I was director of our golf management program for 19 years and had to reach out to her on multiple occasions, some very serious cases and some not so much, but she's amazing, as are the 2 gals up here with me, and the other fellas that are helping during the your all's orientation. I am in the College of Business. Like I said, I spent 19 years as our director of golf management. I'm now the director of our professional development series, where we teach essential skills. And so our students, sophomore, junior, senior year, we're actually getting them career ready. And part of that is them understanding those skills that they need to be successful in the workplace once they graduate. I also coordinate our co-ops there. I grew up in Lexington. I went to school at the University of Cincinnati. Before I tell you the next part, one reason I'm here is because I'm the new faculty athletic representative on this campus. So that means you may or may not have to contact me about an issue that you're having with athletics in a student. I hope not. They don't come up very often at all. Sometimes those students are the most diligent in the classroom, which is wonderful. But the population I identified with in college is a student athlete. So I played college golf, and it was an amazing experience. So I'm just getting into this FAR, faculty athletic representative position. But I have, since the day I walked in here, I go to every football game, every basketball game, the baseball games I can go to, softball games. Sometimes they're earlier and I may be teaching, but that's the other thing I would encourage you to do is to get involved on campus. Get involved, go to concerts, go to plays, go to ball games. I'm going to tell you, it makes a difference. And you're going to meet people outside of your department by being engaged in other areas on campus. So, and here, Dr. Carpenter offers all kinds of continuing ed type things. He's had us read a few books, and I've done that, and they've been amazing. Some of them have helped me in the classroom. There are all kinds of things that are offered here that you should take advantage of. It might be hard your first year, just as you're getting your feet on the ground, but I'll hush now. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Well, as she said, welcome to EKU. My name is Martina Jackson. I go by MJ, or you can call me Martina. I answer to both, but I think I like MJ because I don't like people when they butcher my name. But I'm in our Center for Student Involvement. I'm our Director of Community and Global Engagement, and it's a big title for a lot of different things. So the Colonel's Cupboard, which is our on-campus food pantry, I oversee that. Parent and family programming, service learning, civic engagement, volunteerism. That's the portfolio for that. So a lot of student engagement. And I would say, how would I identify as a student? I was overly involved. That looked like student government. That looked like getting involved in doing dance. I did my undergrad down the road at Berea College. I am a doctoral candidate as of Monday. First gen came from is Appalachia, not Appalachia. Don't say that. It's Appalachia. I grew up in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Knoxville area. So coming to Kentucky was a bit of a shift for me. But Kentucky has been good to me, and I love working in higher ed. Education is transformative. And so I like to approach our students in that way because we do have a lot of first gen. We have students who are interested in getting engaged. And that's the exciting part of how can we align your interests outside the classroom and reinforce what you're learning.
I realized that. Hi, I'm Laura Vance. I'm the Dean of Students. When I was in college, I identified as first generation, but I also was a student parent, a very young student parent. And so my children were raised on college campuses and both finally graduated from college. Everybody's journey is different. But I like to think that just having that exposure for them made it familiar and approachable for them. But I'm gonna now go back to my panel here. I would argue that MJ is probably still overly involved on campus, but um, but if any of you ever want to learn about ways that you can get involved or volunteer or show up at a fun thing, let me know, let MJ know. We can tell you like where are some places that you won't see too much. Because, it's like cleaning out your child's car. You don't do that unless you want to open a can of worms. I'm going to ask the panel here, what are some primary wellness needs that you've seen that EKU students have? Areas of wellness.
You want to start?
Yeah. You started else. So I would say with the Colonel's Cupboard in particular, This past year, we had a record number of visits. We had over 3,000 visits to the Colonel's Cupboard. And that is a resource free to all students as long as they're enrolled here at EKU. But resource insecurity, food insecurity, those basic needs are prevalent on any college campus. So oftentimes people think it can't be at my campus, or it won't, or sometimes the cupboard or pantry is off campus. So we have woven that into the experience of students when they go into the student center, which I think is really important to have that visibility that anyone can go in here. It's low barrier. You go in, you just scan a QR code, you get what you need. We have both professional clothes, casual clothes, all season clothes. And the other piece about the Colonel's Cupboard is that students who maybe they are getting resources, but also they can volunteer in the Colonel's Cupboard. So it's a learning space as well. So we try to make it to where it's again, no questions asked. We're not saying who deserves this resource, that is beyond the point. Both undergrad and graduate students are utilizing it. Many of the students that are in there are working on campus and off campus. So food is a basic necessity. Those are things that I talk to them. If you need a snack, just come up and get it. It's not about like, I'm out. We want you to get there before you're completely out of food, right? But just reminding them, you do have to eat to like sustain yourself, right? So talking about it that way in terms of wellness has been the language I use, and not to make it about you don't have something, you have to use this, but this is for you. You should be utilizing this,
How do you make sure that, or do you do anything to try to make sure that students aren't embarrassed to go?
So we have walk-in hours and we have appointments. So students can, if they don't want to go in during walk-in hours, they can set up an appointment. And our AmeriCorps member, myself, or a student worker will go up, will allow them get what they need, and that's that.
Where does the food come?
The grocery store. And donations, no, I'm kidding. So yeah, so yes, it is not. This is donations, all donations, monetary, and what people provide. If we do donate, we'll do a donation drive in the fall. We call it Battle of the Centers. We did this past fall. Rusty, I'll be tapping your crew in for that. But also people donate online. That's the easiest way for us to be able to get the things that students need, because we have dietary needs as well that we try to make sure that they have. So it's all monetary, it's donations for the most part.
Does it include like health and hygiene products, like period products and things like that?
Yes, toiletries as well. Mm-hmm.
So, you want to make donations other than monetary stuff, is it possible that you just bring stuff?
It is, and we have a list too of like staple items that we are looking for, and the conditions or requirements around what we can and cannot accept, because we are certified by the health department. So it is online. If you look up the EKU Colonel's Cupboard, and you'll see donations, it'll have all the links there.
All right, so I'm going to talk just a little bit about some things that I've seen in my years here is we do, even though we have students from the entire state and other states, our service area, which I'm sure you've heard, is the 22 counties of Eastern Kentucky. And there are some students that you're going to have in class that have some academic needs. And I teach some of the things that I teach. They have to do some writing. They have to do a resume. And I'm sure everybody in here has compassion, but you just need to make sure that you understand that. One of the very first resumes that I got from a student, this was 6 or 7 years ago, in this new role that I'm in, he just did a timeline. He had no idea. He had no idea what a resume was, even though I'd gone over it and he'd seen it on, I'd given him examples and there were examples on Blackboard at the time, and he still didn't get it. So, I didn't mark it as an F and give it back to him and say, try again. I made an appointment with him, brought him in the office, and we worked through it step by step. So you probably won't have that extreme, but you could, right? So there were students that, and a lot of those students, and I'm not a first gen kid, I'm a second gen. My dad was a first gen and my mom. But some of those kids won't ask for help, right? They just won't, and it's just not their nature. So sometimes, hopefully you can have your antenna up and you can identify if there's a pattern with a student that maybe it would be nice if you sat down with them and spent some individual time with them. So I'm going to pass it to my friend here.
All right. I think a lot of students struggle with their mental health and stress management and time management. Again, I work primarily with first year students, but this carries on. So, think about a freshman student coming in and they've had help or they've had the schedule from like 8 to 3, and then now they get to kind of do what they want, and they get to get up when they want and go to schedule, and they have to do their own. We had one student that asked one of my instructors this past spring what time he was allowed to go to lunch. And he's like, you have a 2-hour break. And he's like, I just need you to tell me like when I can go to lunch. But now they might just have 2 classes a day. So they might go to class from 11 until noon. That extra time is actually freaks them out. It stresses them out because they don't know what to do or how to navigate those. We also have, whether it's our students that aren't as academically prepared, to our students who like had a 34 on their ACT. They might not have had to study a lot whenever they were in high school, and then they have to come here and things are completely different. And maybe they fail their first exam. Well, some of them have never failed at anything. They've never failed at an exam. They haven't failed in sports because they have participation awards. And so them failing an exam for the very first time is enough to put them on a complete tailspin where they're like, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough to be here. And they'll go back in their residence hall and they'll just stay there. And they'll start missing all of their other classes too. And then by the time that somebody realizes that, or it gets to our wonderful dean of students, like sometimes it can be really hard for them to dig back out of a hole. So with our first year courses, we try really hard to talk to them about that early on, like how to manage stress, of how to start dealing with your time management. But if you start seeing students like coming in disheveled, or they're starting to be late, or they're starting to miss, most of the time our students don't miss class because they don't want to come to class. Most of the time they miss class because something else is going on. And so even you like being like, hey, Mary, you weren't in class today, or hey, you missed class the other day. Is everything okay? Sometimes they're going to tell you like, yeah, like somebody in my family passed away, or like I have to work 3 jobs now and I was up all night. So like Laura said, like every student has a different story, and you all being able to identify that can be really helpful. And what mental health looks like to each student can also be really different. And again, it's just that even that time management and stress piece, how that it can send them into some of these different mental states is something to definitely keep in mind, whether it's our students. I mean, it's all of our students.
Access to healthcare in Kentucky is not great. And so our students will come here having maybe not had a regular physician, or if they're having mental health needs, they might not have access to mental health needs, or their family might not recognize that it's a healthcare need. And so student health services here on campus, our students, all enrolled students pay a student health fee. And so they can use counseling center, they can use student health services, they can use psychology clinic without any out of pocket, and no, they don't even bill insurance, which is great because then if they're getting mental health support, and they're working with the counseling center. Counseling center's like, we're going to refer you to student health because we think maybe a medication might help you. Then student health will be mindful that the student wants to pay for the medication out of pocket because they don't want it to show up on their parents' insurance statement. So they make sure it's an affordable option. And so those conversations happen quite a bit here, and those are just some things to keep in mind as well. Of course, student health also, please, if the student has a medical emergency, do not send them to student health. Don't call student health, just call the hospital, call 911, call EQ police or dispatch, and it'll go straight to them. Like, don't bring a student with a broken leg to student health because Brenda can't set that. But acute needs like mono or flu or things like that, they can help with as well. And I just want to make sure. So on that note, what are some other resources that you all recommend to students? And can you help our faculty understand? Let me get the question. I'll get
That too.
Okay.
Where is student health?
It's in the Rowlett building, so kind of across from Wallace and next to the science building. The science building is big and beautiful.
Look for the tallest building on campus, which is Commonwealth, and it's to the left of that.
And at every other university I've been, they tout counseling services, but they can't ever get in.
Oh, yes, they can get in. They can get in, and they have on-call. So if a faculty member walks a student to the counseling center during regular operating hours, the counseling center number is staffed after hours for crisis. I see Brandon Creech there, used to work at the counseling center, and so I feel like I'm being tested. Yeah, but yeah, there's not a wait list. And if a faculty or staff member walks a student over, the front desk will see that as the need for a crisis appointment, and they will try to get the student in immediately. Now, some of you don't look like you might be a faculty member, you look real young. And so if you walk in, you might need to say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm the student's instructor. They need to see somebody as soon as possible. Now, if you walk in and you have a student with you and it's not a crisis, but you're breaking the ice for them, just say, this isn't a crisis, but they want to make a first appointment. Yeah. But no, that's a great question. And you will have students say, well, I heard there's a wait list. No. It's just some weird fallback, and I don't know how it happens, but it happens. Yeah, we're gonna walk over, you and me right now. We're gonna walk over. Yeah.
And they're also in Raleigh.
No, they are in the Whitlock building. So it's not the tallest building on campus, but it's 5 stories.
We're like with my mom.
Yes. Yes.
I've been plugging the LinkedIn, walking around campus. Google Maps is accurate, at least down the parking lot so far.
Wonderful. Every once in a while they're still building. I'm like, wait, what? So, and I've been here for a minute. So what resources do you all recommend? And for faculty here, how do you communicate that to students in a way that they understand what you're saying? You're kind of released, pushing aside a stigma. How do you communicate that to students in a meaningful way for our students?
We've already talked about the counseling center. They're amazing. I'm going to talk about the Student Success Center, which is in the library on the bottom floor here. They tutor in like almost every subject. Lovely Dr. Vance is the one that created the Student Success Center many years ago. And it is 10 years ago. Yes, we're about to have their anniversary of it. But it is great. They tutor in all the subjects. They can also get peer mentors for them. There's a form that you can do, a student success referral form. So if you have a student that's in your class and they're struggling with your subject, you can refer them to that. It can be anonymous, like other students can refer them. And then that helps get them a mentor. But students feel like tutoring is ick. But it's not. Go and ask for help. It's a resource. It's a good, what do you always say?
It's a college hack.
Yes, a college hack. There you go. It's a college hack. And so we try really hard, to make sure that they know we have many different tutoring centers on campus that are amazing. But we work a lot with the Student Success Center. They also do a lot of workshops throughout the semester, but They do them on time management, on stress management, on how to make a schedule when it's time to do academic advising. So they are constantly looking at what the student needs are and are trying to make sure that the students are getting those types of resources. But like if you have a student that's struggling or fails their psychology 200 exam and they're like, I have no idea what to do with this. They can go and sign up and have a tutor for Psychology 200 that most likely had the same professor that gave that exam. And then that student can sit down with them and be like, here's how you should study for these. Here's the different types of resources. And once they get in there, they usually continue to keep going. Yes.
Do you have any advice on, with this generation? I find that it's a barrier to get them to take that step to ask. for
Walk
that
them
help.
there. Walk them there. They might not want to, but sometimes just literally getting them to the space. They're like, oh, I'll do it later. If you have like any other, like we have like some peer mentors, like some student peer mentors, or any other like upper level students that you know are working in any of these other areas, or talk to some other faculty. Like if another student will go with them there, then they're more likely to do it because they think that we're old. Which hurts my feelings. But if another peer says, I also use this, then I think sometimes it can help break it. But just really getting over the stigma of, like people don't use this. Well, if you want to pass this class, like why don't you get somebody to help you, figure it out? And I think a lot of times they start to come around. But if they get there once, then they'll realize it. And just getting them in the library space, because we also have the Noel Studio, we have El Centro. Like it is just such a great space. And you like walk around and like these students are in groups together and they've got these big whiteboards and they're like writing all the stuff around and getting them into some of these spaces. Even the PAL building, there's like tons of student spaces like for students to study, and they'll start seeing other students doing it and they'll be like, okay, maybe it is the cool thing to do.
One of the arguments that I would use, because sometimes it's an argument kind of thing that you do, is that I would say that, you're so busy. Going to tutoring helps with your time management because they can help you get organized in what you need to study and work. So it's sometimes flipping it a little bit and saying, well, this is a good tool resource to help you with your time management and figuring out how to get stuff. So sometimes it's reading the student and figuring out what's going to be the best.
Because they will say, I'm too busy for that.
Right. And it helps a lot.
Just try it once. Just try it once and tell me what you think about it.
So I have to say both of those areas are amazing, Student Success Center and the Counseling Center. I have personally walked kids over to counseling before. One of the most serious was before you were dean of students, but it was very serious. And I walked him over and they actually took him to Lexington, to a hospital where he needed some very concerted care. So, and they're going to take care of kids. We have never, when I was in golf management, we'd have about 120 to 125 students in our program. And there were times we had to take students to the counseling center. We never, ever had a problem with getting a student in. So that might happen at other places, but in my 22 years here, it's never happened. So, make sure that students, if just walk a student over there if you need to. What I'm going to focus on is student athletes here. So athletics, the kids are going to obviously be typically, like I said earlier, they're diligent in the classroom. Typically, they're good students, but they are dealing with practices, being on the road, go to competitions, the team expectations, coaches' expectations. There are some coaches that are a little harder on students than other coaches on this campus. There are some coaches that aren't as easy to work with. Just in the last 2 years, have I had just mainstream students, because I always had golf management students and I've loved every minute of it, getting to know them. Had a lot of athletes in class, but athletics does have something called the Bratsky Center, and that is there for them. They do academic advising. They do their study hours. I don't know what they call it here. Like a study hall in high school type thing. You will, as a faculty member, get a notification from the Bratsky Center that says Kim Kinser is traveling with the golf team and she will be gone on these dates. And one of those dates might be when your class is. There are some teams, obviously, that may have, basketball team may have 2 games in a week. They may be home 1 game, so they're not gonna miss, but they'll travel. The golf teams are gone for longer periods of time typically. They're usually traveling, and then their tournaments are 2 or 3 days long. So, you'll get the jive of what that is, but you just need to be in tune with that. And the Bratsky Center folks are amazing. Yes, ma'am.
In terms of athletes traveling, and things like that, how much for one does that notice come? So I'm coordinating lab classes. Those you can't just take notes and from somebody. So trying to work with a student to, they pop them in a different section so they can not miss their lab class, another day of the week, but like obviously need some notice to try to, if they're in on Thursday and that's when the lab is, if we can get them in earlier in the week.
It's usually 7 to 10 days is what it is. It's not a long period. But I'm glad you brought that up. One thing that I do, and this isn't just for athletes in my classes, but I do ask if there are students that are involved in a group, whether it's, some kind of theater group or chorus group, or are they going to travel? Our risk management and insurance major, those students travel pretty regularly. I ask if they're going to travel on behalf of the university, and I ask for them to stay, end class a little early, and I do this in the first week or so of class. And then I do set expectations for them. So with RMI, the risk management, they don't always send you an email. So you need to know and a lot of those kids will come, or sometimes they don't even tell you until after it's over and they've missed, right? So I want them to know that they need to let me know ahead of time that if they're going to miss. Even the athletes, they know what their schedule is, right? Before we get a notice from the Bratsky Center. So I try to set that early on in the semester and identify those students so that we don't have the issues that you're talking about. But the Bratsky Center is a great place. They help the athletes. If you have questions, you can always come to me. And I'm Kim.Kinser, Kincer. You can send me an email and I can get in touch with them. You can get in touch with them either way. But if you have an issue with, this has happened just once with me, with a student who told me he always had to miss class because he had a coach's meeting, or he had to go to rehab, or he had to do this, or he had to do that. And I'm like, time out, pal. This ain't gonna work. And it is one of the coaches that is hard to talk to. But I just sent an email and said, hey, I'd like to chat with you sometime, either in person or on the phone. And we talked on the phone, and the coach was scheduling those team meetings during classes. So it didn't happen anymore after I talked to him. I'm not sure he was real happy with me, but the kids got to go to class, right? So you probably will never have that, but just in case that happens, question the student and then reach out. You can reach out to me and I'll deal with the coach.
Let's see, you guys have covered the ones that I
Sorry.
cover.
Okay, let's.
I'll talk more about our Center for Student Involvement because it is a hub for 2 other departments as well, which includes fraternity and sorority life, and then student activities, first year, that name's changing, engagement, whatever it is. But it is a hub for students to figure out what type of organizations they can get involved with, events that are happening on campus. We have an app that we use to post all the events that are happening on campus. And we use, the app is called Cork. And students will have that to check into the different events. It helps us keep track too. Retention wise, more students are engaged, more likely they're going to be coming back to campus and they go to your class, right? So Engage is the platform that we use. We post Not only our center, but different departments will post their events that are happening on campus. So this is a great way for, in case like you're having your students go to certain things, that you know what's going on campus that you can refer to. For instance, if you have community service as a part of your curriculum, send them to the Colonel's Cupboard. But that's also going to be on the Cork app where they can see, here are some volunteering opportunities. And again, it's trying to get them plugged in here on campus so that they know they have an opportunity to do something. We do see where students will stay in our room, we're not engaging, and that can lead to a lot of different challenges, right? So if we're not seeing them outside of the classroom, that can be a problem too, right? We want them to know that they have a home, a space outside of the classroom that can help reinforce why they're here in the first place. So I would say our center is you guys can come and hang out. Like, it's not just strictly students. Students come in there and take naps. We won't disturb them. We've got free food, snacks, things like that for students to get as well. Students groups will meet in there. But we try to make it a welcoming space. And so students, like, you don't have to be, sometimes students think they have to be a part of a specific organization or they have to have an appointment to come in. It's literally a hangout area. Commuters, we welcome them to utilize the space as well. We've got a refrigerator, microwave, Keurig, all of that good stuff. And then, of course, the people in there, we've got a ton of student workers that support our front office and our events. And then the professional staff that are there to support those three areas as well. So we try to be a resource, not only for students, but for you guys as well. I have a interest in doing more service learning focused things. So if you have an interest in looking for a community organization, I know I talked to David back there about that, that I'm also willing to process that, be a thought partner as well, because I do that for funsies outside of my work, as being involved in the community. So
Actually, before you hand that back, you mentioned student workers and student employment on
yes,
campus. And that's
is a
really key
yeah.
engagement tool, retention tool, and just as a general resource, as well as if they're saying to you, oh, I'm, student worker position. If sometimes, touching base with that area where the student's working can be great support too. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
So I know maybe a year or two ago, like the retention rate for students who work on campus is above 90%. So that speaks a lot to what we can do, both whether it's in the classroom or in a center where students can have employment. I would say one of the challenges I see is students that have federal work study maybe underutilizing that. So encourage them if they're looking for something on campus, especially if they have federal work study, to utilize that monies to support themselves as well. But we have, I think, 20 plus student workers in our center. So we are constantly training them on all the things and all different types of majors. And so that is a key piece for students here, is employment opportunities. I would also say for international students, they can't work off campus. So encouraging them to look for on-campus positions. They're not allowed to legally work off campus anywhere, but they can work for the institution. So I would encourage that as well.
Are there any resources available on campus for students who might be going through housing crisis or homelessness situation? And I'm asking this because I've had students in my hospital who are going through that.
You have a what?
Housing crisis or homelessness.
And you have a graduate student, did you say, or?
I have had students in my class before who are going through that.
Okay. So to that question, yes. I mean, we see that. I'm every day grateful for the Enrich One Stop in Richmond. It's only been open a little over a year. Prior to that, we didn't even really have a good housing shelter in Richmond for people who are unhoused. But Enrich One Stop has been fantastic. I think they might be a little overrun right now, from what I'm hearing, because it was a great need. But if they are an enrolled student and they are unhoused and they need emergency housing, they do have to be enrolled. But I have seen our residence halls get a student in an hour and a half. I mean, from time to, okay, fill out the housing application. Okay, I'm going to contact the housing office. Okay, they have a room available for you. Now, it's not free. So something else that we have to do is then look at their financial aid and that kind of availability. And we'll work with scholarship office and things like that if we have to. Break housing, there is a charge for break housing, so students can stay during breaks. So winter break, we have several students that will be here during winter break. And that's a weekly charge, but we do find ways to help students take care of that. We're trying to have them, housing is trying to have them select that early so that they can actually go ahead and bill them for that out of their financial aid. Because what we were running across last year was, I've already spent my financial aid refund. And I'm not saying they're wasting their financial aid refund, please note that. But it is easier for them not to have to anticipate that. And then summer, we have all kinds of programs that will pay for their summer housing. So if they're an orientation leader, if they're a campus tour guide, campus rec. So we're acutely aware of those kinds of needs with students and find ways to, the challenge that I always come across is a non-traditional student that's like, I'm not staying in a residence hall. And I'm like, same. Totally get that. And then just trying to shuffle around. But a lot of the time I'm just referring them to Rich now. And that's been a big support and help. Rusty, how much time do we have?
You have until 12:15.
Okay, good. I was worried it was supposed to end at 12 and then.
Doing great.
Yes.
I also had like maybe potentially kind of sad question, but one of the things that I've come across a lot in my experience, especially as like a young, very young female academic, is that like instead of having students that are not coming to me about their problems, I have students that actually come to me for everything. And it happens all the time. I had a student last year actually who was going through a mental health crisis, very, very severe. And I referred her to services, she got access to those services. But after she had gotten access, she was still coming to me and giving me like gruesome graphic details about what was happening. And so I guess my question is like, what would you suggest like I do in a situation where that boundary is really hard to keep? Because I want them to see that they can come to me and talk to me about things, but I'm also a person and that is very, very hard. You want to
I think a lot of them.
Right, I think it's right, yes. Laura is great about talking about trauma dumping, because a lot of students do that. Have you given your presentation on like the Say It report and things like that? Okay, do you?
During new faculty seminar, yes.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
we'll link to those resources as well. So I'm looking at everything. You'll have access to all of the things that they're
Okay.
referencing.
Okay, so Dr. Vance's office has what's called a Say It report, which is
Student Assistance and Intervention Team. So if you've been to other universities, it's often referred to as the BIT.
so if you have a student that's telling you these types of things, I would strongly encourage you to go ahead and fill out that Say It report. So her office is aware of that. They'll a lot of times go and they're terrified of meeting with the dean of students, and then they meet with her and then they're like, oh my gosh, she's lovely. Like, can I go back and meet? Right. So I think that's one thing. Also telling them like you are a mandated reporter, I think is something that's like important for them to know. Like, I want you to share this with me, but I also need you to know that I'm a mandated reporter. I think it is okay to set some boundaries as well. But a lot of times just even talking to to the dean of students offices. There are many times that some of my instructors are like, oh my God, this just happened and I have no idea what to do. And then I also have to call Dr. Vance and say, oh my God, I don't even know what to do. But her office is fantastic, I think, of like helping you navigate some of those really hard situations. Like it's either one or the other here. I think either you get complete trauma dumping or you get like nothing, like they don't communicate at all. And I think I do think though it's very important for us to develop relationships with our students. And I think it is very important to know their name. Like research even says, if one person knows a student's name, they're more likely to stay. So I think it is important because if they're telling you something like this, like you might be the only person that they feel safe enough to tell that to. And then you're able to fill out that say it report where there could be a whole lot of other things happening. And Dr. Vance's office is able to get them to the various types of resources that they could need.
Do you have anything to
Is
add?
that it? Did I get it all?
Word about boundaries? How do you stop
You're
that?
probably much better about that.
They keep going.
They do.
Well, I keep telling me,
I-
like, I'll speak up.
Yeah,
I'm
like-
really bad about boundaries, so I don't need to
Yeah.
answer that part of the
I would say
question.
like, I tell students, like, I have an open door policy. If you need anything, just let me know. But anything can turn into like, you're telling me your life story and all the traumas. And it's like, I understand those things are happening, and I'll say, pause. So is this something that I may need to report? Or I said, before you start going into those things, but also know, I trust your judgment and whatever you're trying to process right now. And then afterwards follow up with, here are the things that I would encourage you to do, or we're going to walk over to the counseling center, or we're going to walk upstairs to the dean of students. I would say within my role, just seeing like, students who are in need, that is a daily trauma, like, at sometimes, so it's like, you want to engage those students with, care, but also remember, like, how do we empower them to continue doing the things that they need to be doing? So I'm glad you're here. You got what you needed. Great. Also, have you talked to so-and-so? If I know they've been talking with Dean Vance, or have you followed up with the counseling center? I remember you mentioned that as a way to kind of put those boundaries of like where that support ends and begins. But it's, that it fluctuates from person to person. You might have to say it in various iterations because it might not click. But just, yeah, having that flexibility of saying like reinforcing the tools they have and reminding them like, I'm here for you, but you also need to really think about talking to these folks because they can give you more tools than I could ever give you, like for this particular thing.
You're gonna get a presentation.
I'll lead training in September on that. It's a student assistance and intervention team. It is not calling in SWAT. It is not like we're not overreacting. It is giving us pieces of information. If a student is having a mental health challenge or basic needs challenge or something like that, you're like, they're definitely not going to follow through. I need somebody to pay attention and to notice, and it's how we connect dots on it. So if it is a crisis need, though, you need to call EKU police. If the student is suicidal or engaging in active self-harm or anything like that, our EKU police, it's campus police, they are mental health trained, and it's not crazy responses. Now, please know, some of our students are from areas that don't have healthy relationships with police. Our police are aware of that too. And so they're careful in how they approach a student, and they're very cautious or very careful about building relationships and rapport with students. So you'll see them in case dining hall, you'll see them at events and things like that. The RAs probably over-report. Yes, yes, which is good. And then the RHCs are the pro staff. Yeah, yeah. Brandon?
I was just going to say, another recommendation. If we recognize like vicarious traumatization of faculty and staff happens, you're able to access the site clinic as well as faculty. Like we have professors who are seeing therapy, so keep that in mind. Also, just specifically, letting the students know that there are several therapists at the counseling center that are specifically trained in trauma work. They use the cutting, like EMDR, cognitive processing therapy. So sometimes that can help, but it's like, okay, these are specific tools for trauma. The Psy clinic, our students, we have a specific trauma clinic that's really beneficial for students. So that's just, I think sometimes like these are the reasons there are specific resources for trauma. Can be helpful too.
Absolutely, and it's super helpful to know that that resource is also available to faculty, like the experience I had my student, like telling me about self-harm. Yeah, and like what she was doing, not doing it, all of that, and so, like, it was a very hard experience for me, I got my own mental health, and so knowing that that's what.
And it is always okay to say, the things that you're sharing with me are really concerning to me. And if I continue to listen to you, and I've said this, it can feel like you're in therapy with me, and I am not a therapist. So the more I'm listening, the more this mocks therapy, but I don't know how to respond. And so we need to get you to somebody that's trained to respond. And those kinds of tools, just that reminder, gosh, I even do it with financial aid. Remember, I'm not a financial aid counselor. And so those opt-outs they're real, and you don't want to get to the point where it feels irresponsible for you to continue to, and it's also okay to say it's irresponsible for me to continue to listen to you because that's not what you need right now.
I'm sorry. Oh,
Go.
are you here?
Yes.
I taught at Northern Illinois University for several years, and we had a policy for gender identity in the classroom. Do you have anything like that here? I just want to be informed if there is.
There's not really a policy.
Yeah, because we had policies like, students have to fill out their names and their pronouns on the first day of their class. And don't use their legal names or don't unintentionally out them.
There's not a policy like that, and also you're in Kentucky, so it's super all weird right now. Yeah. So yes.
That's the language we use.
Thank you, MJ. My preferred name, yes.
That's what I do. So
Yeah.
the very first session, they say if you have a preferred name or pronoun, and then it's a nickname that you want to be called.
Right.
In the very first session, one of the slides.
Everyone want to be called Bad Bunny, I don't know. That's not the short name.
Because today's my day of question. Remember all of their names. I feel like I'm gonna have a hard time with that, like.
So we're kind of corny sometimes, but again, we're first year courses. We can be corny. We use table tents, exactly what you got right here. We use those a lot. Whenever you can print off your class roster and it has pictures on it. And so then what I do, like my first day of class, I will like ask everybody, to tell me something about themselves. Usually I get them to tell me like something random, and then I'll write that down, and then that's like what I'll remember. Like they love pandas, and I'll be like, oh, they love pandas. So I will like somehow make that connection. But I think using like these like table tents are really good, and have them write it on both sides, because then if somebody's behind them or if you're behind them, you can still see it. We even use them and like pass them out at the beginning of every day of class. And then if they're not there that day, then we write the date down. So then at the end of the semester, whenever they're like, I haven't missed 5 days of classes, you're like, here you go. Here are the 5 days that you missed. But handing them out each day, like you might be like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. But like, if you keep doing it like every day, last semester, I had a class, I had an Emma, an Emmy, an Emmeline, and something. And I just looked at them, and they were all blonde. They all had long hair. And I just looked at them. I was like, this is going to be terrible, and I'm just going to go ahead and apologize. So you're going to have to, and it took me half the semester, and I think I still got some of them wrong at the end. And I'm like, I'm just going to start calling you all M. Like, we're just going to be Like, we're just gonna be
Gonna
done with that. But I do think, and I understand, like, if you're teaching 4 classes and you have, 130 students, that can be hard. So I think sometimes those table tents can help, and things like that.
Those were there in here. We had 3 Maddie, but
Right.
Maddie and
Anyway.
Yeah.
I do pop quizzes in my class every session, but they're not like, tell me what you know from last session. It's like, what color of M&M do you like most strongly identify with? And then what questions do you have? And I'll hand them back the next time. So like if they write their questions, like math scares people and we're doing like odds ratios. Somebody has a question about odds ratios. I've read it and I've like incorporated that in my lecture. Like we'll talk about that material again, but I'm handing them back their pop quizzes. That helps me remember their names.
Kind of forces you, it forces you to.
Paper, that's a beautiful thing, right?
Yeah.
And having them fill out that paper, like making kind of like what you do on the first day, like just have a piece of paper that says, I want you to put down your name, your preferred name, your pronouns, anything that you want me to know about you, like what's your favorite thing, and then kind of like reviewing, kind of having those like on file so you can kind of go back and remember those types of things.
I always tell them, please share confidently, comfortable.
Yeah,
In the
yeah.
class, I always, a disclaimer.
We do a boring fact, like, do you like socks? Did you eat oatmeal for breakfast? Low stakes.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
the boring fact.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask a question, too. So, in this climate, right, like international students may be facing particular pressures, visa issues, their family may be in areas that are particularly sensitive to conflict. Are there resources for those students or like navigating visa issues or like some of the trauma associated with them being so far?
Briefly speak, because I used to see over our international student services, but that's in a different office. Now, Matthew Cox is the person that supports our international students when it comes to visa compliance, F1 visas, all the paperwork, working with students from when they get admitted to EKU onto when they graduate. So I know there's another person, I'm missing their name right now, but I can't. Matthew Cox is our PSO. I think it's DSO, designated. He's an officer that signs off on their paperwork to say that they're allowed to be at the university. So he would be the person that he would talk through those things with. If it's a financial aid thing, oftentimes students will go directly to him to ask about those pieces, and he'll work closely with financial aid on those particular things. We had a student, they've since graduated, but like their bank got bombed in Lebanon. And so they didn't have access to their money. So what could they do in the meantime before they could actually pay their bill? Would they be able to graduate since their bill wasn't paid? And so, our institution wants, especially I know the folks in financial aid, but we all want them to succeed. We want them to get the things that they need, but it is a conversation. But that's the point person I would point international students to, just to get that conversation started. And then Monica Bamble as well. Mhm.
Yeah, we're over time. If they're quick, we can take quick questions. No, I have 2 questions. Well, shoot.
What are they?
Let's go ahead with the quick questions, and hopefully the panelists can also stay for lunch or a little bit of it.
Well, so resources, so I know one of my classes I've taught, it costs $200 and after the book cost. So are there resources for students for things for classes that are mandatory but not covered by financial aid?
Like still studies?
Yeah, something like that. Like, is there a resource and what is it?
Yes, it depends on their financial aid package. It depends, because they might be getting a financial aid refund, and that's what their financial aid refund should be used for. And sometimes there are things like that we can figure out through scholarships. It's like, the student's financial aid didn't cover it and they're not at budget. So maybe there's room for some kind of an additional scholarship to help with because that's a cost related to attendance.
And so we have to be careful. We do have an student emergency fund. But that cannot be cost related to attendance. So that has to be like, I need a car repair, my house got flooded, I need emergency dental work, those kinds of things. But if it's related to their course, then we have to dig into scholarships and things like that, to see what's available. And then they would go to Biggie Central.
Who's the best point of contact, Biggie?
Biggie Central for financial things like that. Now, if it's an emergency need, if they're telling you that there's been some kind of a crisis at their home or the house flooded or something like that, send me their name and then I can see if they're eligible for emergency funds. Now, we also do robust outreach if there's a natural disaster. So the university does.
Do you link them with like the Team Kentucky Fund as well? Because depending on if it's a natural disaster, there are state funds available too, particularly for their families.
We're assuming a lot that their families, if this is something that happened back at home, we're assuming that they are connecting with insurance companies and things like that. In cases like that, we've used emergency funds while they're waiting for insurance companies to take care of their needs. We had a student that lost their everything, their car keys, their glasses, their entire family home in a house fire last semester. And the insurance company put them up in a hotel, but I mean, they couldn't even drive their cars because their car keys were in the house. And she needed glasses to finish the semester. And so while you're waiting for your insurance to cover things like that, meanwhile, she just needs glasses. And so we can use emergency funds for that, get that to them. I mean, 3 to 5 days, depending on how quickly the bank picks up the deposit. So there's some things that we can do in cases like that. And then when it's a natural disaster, we are pointing to those kinds of websites to say, have you seen this and this and this and a follow. There's a whole communication plan.
Sounds very thorough.
It's very thorough. The flooding in Eastern Kentucky taught us a whole lot.
Absolutely. Hey, one quick thing before we go and wrap things up. One thing I would encourage you all to do, on your ID card, you can actually get money put on there for Case Dining Hall. And I would encourage you maybe just even once a week or if twice a month or whatever it happens to be, because then you're going to come in contact with students that you may have in the classroom. And they always think it's cool if you're in there eating lunch.
That's where I check in.
Yeah.
All right, one last thing. Are y'all ready to sing? All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to your birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. I feel my age. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank
for
you all
panelists
so much.
today.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your infinite wisdom. I know everybody is hungry. I did want to say one thing. Someone had a question and Laura answered it. And the response was, "You're in Kentucky," and that made us think. Genuinely, we've had some recent legislation. And we've had to navigate and make some changes at the university. That's not a conversation for right now, but your deans and chairs will be up to date on that. So if you do have any questions, please relate that to them in your deans and chairs meetings. Also,
That's a much better way to answer that.